Now, given that Protestantism, liberalism, modernism, and neo-modernism are all parallel, one piles on top of the other. Modernism contains all of liberalism, all of Protestantism. Pius X said that modernism is the main sewer collecting the muck from all other sewers. It's the main sewer of heresies, because it's the disconnecting of the mind from reality, and so it disconnects the Catholic mind from all Catholic doctrine. There's not a single heresy that is not at home in modernism. It includes all heresies. Okay. Neo-modernism is the rerun of modernism, only the difference is that the modernism is now official. It's modernism officialized, made official. It's modernism that's not only just a few priests and a few laymen, smart men, but nevertheless, and very dangerous, but not large in numbers. Whereas with the neo-modernism, the whole church has given in. Practically the whole church gives in. There are scattered priests. There's finally a couple of bishops that stand out, Bishop Castromayor and Archbishop Lefebvre, but the whole church, otherwise the Pope, the cardinals, the bishops, the priests, the massive priests, they all follow. They go along with it. The result is that there's only now Archbishop Lefebvre and Bishop Castromayor. Let's say two bishops. Two bishops, broadly. Two bishops that hang tight, that hold on. Undoubtedly, there are other bishops that keep the faith, but there aren't other bishops that act on the faith they're keeping. Cardinal Cyril was good. He may well have been elected Pope in 1958 and or 1963. But the bad guys, the Freemasons, the Jews, put tremendous pressure. They said they kill all his family, or they threatened his family, and so he said, okay, I don't want to be Pope. I think he was elected, but he didn't want to be Pope. That seems very possible. So, but there are two bishops that hang on. And the Archbishop creates the SSPX. The Archbishop and Bishop Castromayor comes along with the consecration of the four bishops to help out. It was a great moment because the Archbishop immensely appreciated Bishop Castromayor coming along for the consecrations and helping to consecrate, because he said the presence of Bishop Castromayor is the proof that I am not just spinning all of this out of my own head. I'm not creating my own Catholic Church. This is the Catholic Church that I receive. It's the objective Catholic Church, and the fact that Bishop Castromayor comes along is the proof. And Bishop Castromayor's marvelous little speech, sermon that he gave at the consecrations, he said, I would consider I was committing a mortal sin if I was not here today. Brilliant. Brilliant. So, it was the consecration of bishops was the moment when the SSPX really went its own way, but it belonged to the church. It belongs to the church. It was condemned. The four bishops and the six bishops, I think, were all excommunicated, quote unquote. But the excommunications weren't real. They weren't real. Because in canon law, even if you're mistaken, but you act thinking you're doing it for a serious deed, you're not. The church punishment doesn't apply. Even if you're mistaken, but if you're serious and you're sincere, even if you're deluded, but you think you're acting out of supreme need, you're not. The sanction doesn't apply, and therefore the excommunications were not real. So the SSPX starts. Well, guess what happens? Guess what happens? Once again, the SSPX is got a considerable movement from inside it, coming down from the man at the top, pressurizing to go the same way. Because this is my opinion. If you want to listen to any of the opinion of any of those who are going this way, starting with Bishop Philip, you're absolutely welcome, as far as I'm concerned. And if you want to, I I would impose my opinion that this is what's going on. I would impose my opinion on nobody. I'd give you my arguments, why I think this is what's happening, and then somebody else can give you the opposite arguments, and then you've got your adults, your men, you're responsible for your own soul, some of you also have a family you're responsible for. You make your own decision. Listen to both sides of the question and make your own decision. So I'm not imposing my opinion on anybody, and I don't want to speak disrespectfully of Bishop Lefebvre or of any other of the authorities of the society in Mencia. But I seriously think they're wrong. I think they're gravely wrong. Because I think the Archbishop said that, so you can see the straight line, and the Archbishop, these two bishops were the only ones that really held this line. The Archbishop said that the consecrations, that this line was Operation Survival. To make an agreement with neo-modernist Rome would be Operation Suicide. You may remember that quotation from the sermon at the consecrations in 1988. He said, if I made an agreement, I'll give you some of the quotes in a moment, if I made an agreement with the conciliar authorities, that's it, all the church authorities, all of these cardinals and bishops and priests that are giving themselves over to modernism and liberalism and Protestantism, in effect, that's what they've done. They're moving parallel to the modernists and liberals and Protestants. All of those cardinals and priests are on the wrong track. They're losing it. They've lost the plot. They've lost the Catholic plot. Well, if you judge by the fruits. The Archbishop said, if we don't go along with modernist Rome, with conciliar Rome, with Rome of the Council, with all of these conciliar church authorities, all of these church authorities that believe in the Second Vatican Council, that's why they're called conciliar, if we don't go along with them, it's Operation Survival. If we do go along with them, it's Operation Suicide. Because all of these are losing the plot. They're all moving, they're breaking left from the straight line. And what were the fruits? I mean, the fruits are a very good test. Our Lord, you remember in the Sermon on the Mount, our Lord doesn't say, I want all you sheep to be theologians, I want you to read the theological journals, I want you to study St. Thomas Aquinas. What does our Lord say? He says, judge by the fruits. A good tree cannot bring forth bad fruit, and a bad tree cannot bring forth good fruit. A tree that's half bad and half good will bring half good and half bad fruit. So it's not always black or white, there is grey. But a good tree cannot bring forth good. So what were the fruits of the consecrations? The society expanded. Just like always, whenever the popes and the Counter-Reformation, when they held to the Catholic line, the church always began again to expand. And then along came another round of corruption. And another swing to the left in modern times. It's all, that's the way the modern world is molded. The modern world is molded, is deeply molded by Protestantism. The breaking away from God. It's the great apostasy. It started with Protestantism, or you could say with the Renaissance, the humanist Renaissance before Protestantism. The Renaissance, the Reformation, the Revolution. So, Renaissance, Reformation, Revolution, the three R's. It's breaking away from the church. It's breaking away from God. It's the great movement of apostasy. And so what's happened in the mainstream church since then is more and more apostasy, with obviously some noble exceptions and some souls breaking away. When souls want to be Catholic, in the conciliar church want to be Catholic, what do? They break away to the SSPX. Up till now, they've been able to find in the SSPX a refuge from the nonsense, from the conciliar nonsense. So they've been able, so the fruits of the SSPX were Catholicism. The ongoing fruits of the council were more and more corruption and destruction of the church. The Freemasons, they say, there are 4 Masonic lodges. I think Malcolm Martin would say there are 4 Masonic lodges inside the Vatican. And Father Duchalard said the same thing. So there's reason for saying that. Malcolm Martin said that there was in 1963, soon after Pope Paul VI became Pope, there was a satanic ceremony celebrated inside the Vatican. It wasn't big inside the Vatican. The big ceremony was in Charleston, in the United States, which is a big Masonic center. But there was a sort of branch office of this ceremony, an offshoot of the ceremony, a little representative office inside the Vatican. So the great ceremony with blasphemies and horrors undoubtedly was celebrated in the United States, but there was a little representation inside the Vatican. And that established the lodge inside the Vatican, one of the four. Marilyn Martin used to say, as best I recall, he used to say that the Pope Paul VI knew about it but could do nothing about it, which makes sense, which kind of makes sense. So that's the state of the Vatican. It's full of temples. The Vatican today is full of temples. Oh, it's satanized. And if you get too close, you can catch it. You mustn't get too close to modern Rome. It's bad news. But all of the same, the modern world. You've seen me write. I've written several times over the last 20, 30 years. I've written several times that the same forces that generated Vatican II, I call it 50cism, the soft, you might call it the Sunday Catholicism of the Catholics of the 1950s. There was too much Sunday Catholicism. In other words, Catholics were Catholics only on Sunday. They had their religion for Sunday, and then the rest of the week they lived their ordinary lives, not sufficiently heeding of their religion. Separation of life from religion. God kicked upstairs. Very pious on Sunday, and then you don't care about it for the rest of the week. Too many. That's one name for the disease. Sunday Catholicism. Another name is, I call it 50cism, because there was something seriously wrong with the Catholic. It looked good. It looked as though all of this was the church, from here all the way across to here. It was big, it was numerous, it was broad, it was a lot of decent-looking priests, decent-behaving priests, decent-believing priests. There were a lot of sisters, a lot of parish schools, a lot of seminaries, a lot of seminarians. And then the council began, and the whole thing collapsed. There was, the termites were in the woodwork. There was something seriously wrong. So, just prior to the council, the council was a great fall. Vroom. A great fall means two things. One, you were at a great height. If you weren't at a great height, you can't be a great fall. Two, you were on the edge of the abyss and you went over the edge. So, on the one hand, there was something good in the Catholicism of the 1950s. On the other hand, there was something rotten in the state of Denmark at the same time. There was something rotten in it. And therefore, this whole thing, which looked so good, and was, in many ways, still good, but it wasn't, the heart of it wasn't there. And so, it went down the tubes. It fell. Well, during the 1990s, the society flourished and grew and flourished, and the mainstream church just went its own wretched way. More and more destruction of the church, more and more immorality, the paedophilia, and the homosexuality amongst the clergy. Paedophilia, of course, the media are in a real bind because the media are promoting homosexuality. It's an alternative lifestyle. There's nothing really wrong with it. And on the other hand, they want to be able to accuse the priests of being homosexuals. But look, take your pick. If homosexuality is not so bad, then it's not so bad in the clergy. If it's bad in the clergy, then it's bad in everybody else. So the vile media, they are vile. The vile media found a trick. This is not homosexuality. This is paedophilia. Paedophilia is molesting children. Molesting children is horrific. It is horror. But in many cases, probably the homosexuality amongst the clergy was rather adolescents than children. Probably. I don't know. I've not gone into it. I've not studied it. I just don't believe it's entirely as the media tell. it's not justified whether it's amongst the adolescents or amongst children. It's not justified. It's a sin. It's one of the 4 sins that Christ of God for vengeance, homosexuality. But it goes back to the 1980s. It's been in the clergy for a long time. I can remember when I arrived in the United States in 1982. Soon after I arrived in the United States, I found this big volume by Father Enrique Rueda on the homosexual network inside the Catholic Church in the United States. It was a big book. That's 1982. It's not recent. And I know that Archbishop Lefebvre said that the reason why the clergy fall for this, the reason why they get into this, is because they've lost their Mass. They've no longer got the proper Mass to celebrate. It's like a nuclear reactor without uranium. The Catholic priest is made for the true Mass. The true Mass, the Mass and the priest go together. That's what Archbishop Lefebvre used to say. The true Mass and the true priest go absolutely together. You take away the true Mass and the true priest is all at sea. So that he would have been the responsibility, I'm quite sure, on the loss of the Mass, the loss of the taking away the heart of the priest, taking out of the priest the heart of his priestly life. Anyway, the fruits here were good, the fruits there were rotten. You judge by the fruits. The Archbishop was right, the consecrations were right, and the Conciliar Church continues to be wrong. That's why the SSPX expanded. Well, what do you think the devil's going to do? It's worked 1, 2, 3, 4 times. He's going to play the same tricks with people's minds, with Catholics' minds. And he's going to say, oh, you mustn't be out. The particular pressure he's going to bring on now, that's a pressure he hasn't been able to bring on before, you've got to belong to the mainstream church. You're outside the church. Well, judged by the fruits, that's not true. Judged by the fruits, the council is not the Catholic Church. The Conciliar Church, judged by the fruits, is not the Catholic Church. The SSPX, judged by the fruits, is the Catholic Church. And that's exactly what Archbishop Lefebvre said. I'll read you the quote tomorrow. He said, it's a different, it's not this one, it's another one. I have got it with me. And the question is, wouldn't the SSPX have been able to do more if it had stayed within if it went back into the mainstream church? And the Archbishop answers, what church are we talking about? If you're talking about the Conciliar Church, that's not the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church is one holy Catholic apostolic. And I'll read you the quote, in which he goes through those 4 points and says, look, the Conciliar Church it's not one, it's not holy, it's not Catholic, it's apostolic. But on all those 4 points, the SSPX is one holy Catholic apostolic. He goes through the 4 points. Those are the 4 marks of the church. They are the 4 indicators of where you have the Catholic Church. Where those marks are present, you have the Catholic Church. Where they're not present, you don't have the Catholic Church. Therefore, this was the Catholic Church in a sense in which this definitely wasn't. This has the authority. The Pope is Pope. This is, of course, a difficult question. The Pope is Pope, the Cardinals are Cardinals, and the Bishops are Bishops. Unless one or the other, or even maybe several, went through an invalid consecration ceremony as bishop. That's another can of worms. The modern situation is full of cans of worms. You've got like can again and can and can, it's all worms. Just imagine. Yeah, that situation is terrible. But the devil is now playing games with the minds of the SSPX. And you've got a lot of priests, in my opinion, who wanting to go with the Conciliar Church, they wanted to go in that direction. And already you have the authorities inside the SSPX discouraging any criticism of the Council, discouraging speaking against Assisi, discouraging or forbidding speaking against the Council, against the Pope. I mean, that's the way it's going. And you know, when you see 500 years, because 1517 to 2012, nearly 500 years, 500 years, 495 years. When you look at 500 years, I think the pattern is clear. What's worse is, you know, let's assume let's assume that this is the case, and let's assume that the, what can we say, the SSPX, the bulk of the SSPX may go that way. I don't know. I can remember from the United States, once I was staying overnight in a family with a bunch of there were a number of there were young adults, brothers and sisters with their spouses and children. It was a big sort of family session. And we got it, there was some kind of debate about the Trinity or something. And this young wife, you know, the question came to her and she said, I don't know. I don't know. You know, how many of the SSPX are tempted to go that way? How many of them will go that way? How many of them go that way? I don't know. God knows, I don't. So, I don't know. So, I'm not a young wife, but I don't know. So, but the terrible thing is, you know, give it a few more years, and once again, the same thing is going to happen again. The same thing is liable to happen again. It's just built into the woodwork. It's a pattern which is there for very good reason, because the devil, when the devil tries a trick once or 3 times or 4 times and it works, hey, he's going to come back again. And exactly the same forces that produced the 50ism are exactly the same temptation, exactly the same forces are bearing even more on the traditional Catholics of the SSPX. I remember reading in some spiritual writer, you know, the vision of some soul. There was a town and then there was a monastery. And they saw the town, there were just a few devils hanging over the town. But there was a crowd of devils over the top of the monastery. Because if they could get the monastery to fall, the rest of the town was child's play. The monastery was upholding the faith in the town. These souls, acting as a lightning conductor for God's anger, were protecting the town. So the devil was working especially on the monastery, he was working especially on the priests. So the devil still had quite a lot of clergy to work on at this point in time. But at this point in time, he's got far fewer clergy to work on. There are about 550 priests in the SSPX, so there's a lot more unemployed devils, because all of this is now in the devil's hands here. No problem. But this is still a problem, because this was still the Catholic proofs. So there's a lot of unemployed devils after Vatican II that come piling on to a few priests of the SSPX. So sure enough, my opinion. That's only my opinion. How is it going to break? How is it going to develop? I don't know. But, you know, and then there'll be a break again. It's going to get smaller and smaller all the time. At the end of the world, if I didn't already say this today, I can't remember. At the end of the world, our Lord says, this is in Luke 18, verse 8, when I come back, shall I find the faith upon the earth? And that's a quotation that means that the Catholic Church at the very end of the world is going to be very reduced in numbers. That's exactly what we're watching today. The diminishing and reduction in numbers of the Catholics that are holding the course, that are holding straight, and that are not tempted to join the world and take the easy way. Yes?
Also that quote about it. In those days even the elect will be deceived.
Yes, that's right. Yes, exactly. Exactly. And if it were possible, if it were possible, even the elect would be lost, something like that. Yes, that's it. It's an operation of error. It's an operation of deceit. According to St. Paul in Thessalonians, an operation of error. That's an exact phrase for the media. The vile media are an operation of error. Exactly. Exactly what St. Paul says. People pay too much attention to the vile media. God bless the internet in that respect. The bad guys have not yet got hold of the internet. And anybody who's looking for truth can still find truth on the internet amidst a pile of muck, amidst a pile of lies. But the truth is there. If you're looking for it, you can find it. You will. If you're looking for the truth, you will find it. But you won't find it. You will hardly find it in the media anymore. The media, the bad guys have got a stranglehold on the media. And that's why they're vile. Because the bad guys are vile. They really hate God and they want to get every soul to fall into hell. That's what they're about. So, you know, prepare for more. Don't think that whatever comes out of this trial of the SSPX, that the troubles are over. The troubles the devil will get back to work. Every time the Catholic Church got its act together, the devil began to work at it again. And the council was the greatest crime of all time against the Church. Tonight, and we discuss, or I talk and then we discuss? Which?
Yes, have a talk and then
okay.
discussion.
Okay, sure. But keep your questions. Do remember your questions. Next, I will give some quotes. I'll read some quotes of the Archbishop. The Archbishop is the man of God on this occasion. Balanced, deep, but clear. Thinking clearly and deeply. Strong faith and a remarkable balance. He's the light that God gave us for this very troubled time. And therefore, in this problem, both sides are claiming that the Archbishop is there, so to speak. Oh boy, another can of worms. But my own version of what the Archbishop thinks and why he thinks, and why he spoke on apparently on both directions, I don't think it's too difficult to understand or to explain. We must come to that. He is the man.